Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Over the past few years, we've seen a sharp deterioration in the stability in the Sahel region. ACLED data show how violence in the region has been escalating. This year, it increased by 5% relative to the same period last year, and by 46% compared to 2021. Jihadist groups terrorize populations. They are responsible for 48% of all attacks on civilians. And military juntas in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger claim to be the solution against jihadists. But their approaches are militarized, not inclusive, and they also violate human rights on a massive scale. They are responsible for 29% of all attacks on civilians. And local communities, they find themselves in the middle. And what about the international community? The junta in Mali kicked out the UN operation MINUSMA. The EU missions in Mali and Niger are lame ducks. The AU and ECOWAS have lost traction and are divided. And at the same time, the junta in Mali turned to the Wagner Group. And also Niger and Burkina Faso are edging closer to them. Militarized strategies focusing on hard security might not only fail to address the root causes of conflict, but they might also undermine people-centered approaches, and they might be less responsive to community security needs. But what are those security needs of local populations? What can best be done to deal with these, and how? I'm Jair van der Lijn. I'm leading the Peace Operations and Conflict Management work at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, and I'll try to moderate today's discussion. And before we open up the floor for the discussion with the audience to discuss these and other questions, we have 5 panelists in total, who I will ask a couple of introductory questions. The first is online, Ibrahima Amadou Maiga. I don't know whether, yeah. He's the Secretary General of RENADEP, that's the National Network of Democratic and Patriotic Awakening, in Mali, which aims to promote the inclusion of youth and women in governance and decision-making, access to justice and rule of law. Then second speaker is GB So, who should be there as well. He's a senior researcher Sahel at the Institute for Security Studies, ISS Africa in Dakar. Then on my right-hand side, first, is Lieutenant General Kees Matthijssen, currently retired, but as you can see, generals never retire. That's why you're still here, right? He has a very long history, both in operational as well as policy positions, including Force Commander of the UN Operation MINUSMA in Mali. And then we have online, again, Iris Hartenveld. She's the Coordinate Cluster Director Sahel. She's based in Bamako. That's why she's on the screen as well. And she's responsible for the programs in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Senegal. And before she moved to the Sahel, she worked a lot on Ethiopia and Eritrea. And then on the far end of the table, very far, is Tijmen Rozenboom. I understand this is already your second panel right now. He is the Netherlands Special Envoy for the Sahel region and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs head of West Africa and Great Lakes region units. And he also has a lot of experience in peace operations in Africa. Without further ado, I would like to first start with a couple of questions to the speakers, and I'd like to start with Ibrahima Amadou Maiga. I hope you're there. And the first question that I would like to ask you is, what are the root causes of insecurity in the Sahel region, and what are the main security needs of local communities?
Okay.
Enlève le son.
Si j'enlève.
This sounds... we can't hear anything now.
Ok. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Mesdames et messieurs. Et Ibrahima Amadou Maïga, comme Jair l'a dit, et causes profondes de l'insécurité dans la région du Sahel et quels sont les principaux besoins de sécurité des communautés locales. Et la première question sur laquelle je vais vous entretenir. Et comme cause profonde de l'insécurité dans la région du Sahel, on peut énumérer entre autres les déficits démocratiques dans la région du Sahel et particulièrement dans les États du Sahel. La démocratie n'a pas pu s'enraciner et malheureusement, elle est restée théorique dans ces États. Les régimes autoritaires qui ont dirigé ces États ont été caractérisés par la malgouvernance. Et la preuve, et nous sommes face à des coups d'État dans pratiquement tous ces États ces dernières années.
Okay, thank you. And the
La malgouvernance a hypothéqué le développement économique et social en créant la pauvreté, ce qui favorise le fanatisme religieux. Et les groupes armés djihadistes exploitent généralement la corruption et l'injustice des États en crise. Nous pouvons aussi ajouter aux causes profondes les changements climatiques. Malheureusement, les sols s'appauvrissent, l'avancée du désert et la disparition des espaces de pâturage, mais aussi l'exode rural, font qu'aujourd'hui, les changements climatiques ont durement affecté les communautés locales. Nous pouvons ajouter aussi le terrorisme international et l'influence des groupes extrémistes. Et ces groupes qui opèrent dans le Sahel sont affiliés aux groupes internationaux tels que AQMI, l'État islamique, le Mujao ou même le Boko Haram. Et ces groupes exploitent les failles de gouvernance, recrutent parmi les populations marginalisées et profitent des conflits locaux pour étendre leur influence et imposer leur idéologie. Et enfin, comme cause profonde, nous pouvons citer la gestion et le partage des ressources naturelles qui créent des frustrations au sein des communautés. Et d'ailleurs, c'est ce qui a justifié les revendications de Boko Haram qui étaient face à une distribution égalitaire de manne pétrolière. Et cette injustice et la corruption du gouvernement central qui était à l'origine pour dire que la cause profonde nous amène en dehors même du Sahel et avec des implications directes dans les États du Sahel. Nous avons aussi les questions, les conflits ethniques, les rivalités historiques entre les communautés qui créent des tensions, souvent exploitées par les acteurs extérieurs pour diviser les communautés locales et favoriser l'émergence des groupes armés. Et enfin, nous avons la question des trafics de tout genre, la prolifération des armes, le banditisme et tout ce qui ensuite, qui ont tous été favorisés par la malgouvernance dans ces États du Sahel, ont enfin, on peut, comme je l'ai dit, les non-contrôles des frontières de ces États ont créé un vide et sinon un terreau qui a de plus en plus fait en sorte que les États aujourd'hui sont dans une crise sans précédent. Et pour moi, ça, c'est les causes profondes de l'insécurité dans les États du Sahel.
Thank you. We get a short translation as well. Paris?
So I will do a small summary. First, one of the root causes is a democratic deficit in the region of the Sahel. And the fact that democracy has stayed more in the theoretical level, bad governance has created several disadvantages, such as poverty that affects local communities. Furthermore, climate change and environmental degradation are two of the main root causes of instability and insecurity in the Sahel. Local communities struggling to survive. Another reason is also the international power relations and the influence of extremist groups and the Islamic State. Another reason is the exploitation of natural resources that plays an impact in the states in the Sahel. And the question of ethnic conflict has also created tensions within the local communities. And all of these have played an important role in the deterioration and bad governance in the region. And one final reason is the absence of border control that has implications for instability in the region.
Thank you. And we also had a second question, and that is what needs to be done to address insecurity needs and what assistance, if any, of course, is required from external or international actors. Again, Ibrahima.
Et comme principal besoin de sécurité des communautés locales, nous avons noté la sécurisation des personnes et de leurs biens. Et il s'agit à ce niveau de sécuriser les foires, les champs, les écoles, les routes, mais aussi les fleuves, sans oublier les lieux de culte. Ces foires sont régulièrement attaquées et ces attaques affectent l'économie rurale. C'est l'exemple de la foire de Kona attaquée à plusieurs reprises en novembre 2023. Nous pouvons aussi citer l'attaque du bateau de Tombouctou le 7 septembre 2023 et l'incendie de l'école de Dounan au pays de Congo. Les routes commerciales qui relient Gao et Tombouctou et même Algérie sont sous blocus et les finances et transports de marchandises sont bloqués. Certaines villes sont complètement vidées de leurs habitants. Et il faut à cela ajouter la protection civile, la protection physique des communautés, et ces communautés ont besoin d'une présence sécuritaire suffisante pour les protéger contre les attaques des groupes armés, assurant ainsi la sécurité des habitants et de leurs biens. Nous avons aussi comme besoin l'accès à la santé, et les services sociaux de base sont absents. Les plateaux techniques ne sont pas bien fournis. Avec les coupures d'électricité récemment, certains hôpitaux travaillent dans des conditions extrêmement difficiles. Nous avons aussi la question d'accès à l'éducation. La sécurité des écoles est cruciale pour garantir l'éducation aux enfants, mais aussi permettre aux enfants de fréquenter l'école sans crainte d'attaque, favorisant ainsi le développement futur de la région. À ces besoins, nous pouvons aussi ajouter la question d'accès à la justice. Les communautés locales ont un besoin crucial d'un accès équitable et efficace des systèmes judiciaires. Cela comprend des tribunaux accessibles, des procédures transparentes et des mécanismes permettant de résoudre les conflits de manière juste. L'assurance que les citoyens peuvent obtenir justice renforce la confiance dans les institutions et contribue à prévenir les cycles de violence en offrant les voies légales pour résoudre ces différends. Il faut aussi répondre au développement économique, la gouvernance effective, mais aussi la réconciliation intercommunautaire. Voilà entre autres les besoins que les communautés à la base aujourd'hui
Whoops.
C'est la promotion entre les différentes communautés contre la sociale et la sécurité collective.
Okay. Thank you very much. Guys, you
I will intervene again. So he spoke basically on the issue of rendering the lives of people more secure when it comes to everyday needs, infrastructure and schools. There was an incident in the blockage of commercial routes that played an important role in the security degradation in the region. So there is a need of civil protection and communal protections civilians. There's absence also in the health access and access to education. So these are two important measures that we need to take into account. And there were also, it was highlighted the question in the access of justice, the need to make security and justice institutions more robust and more transparent is more pertinent than ever now. So basically, yeah, it was all of these issues that were highlighted.
Yeah, thank.
The roads and guarding the fields, he said very much that it was needed for security to guard all these and guarding the road to schools.
For trade, for schools, etc. Yeah. Ibrahim, thank you very much. The question I sort of understood, broadly speaking, of the needs is, it goes in the direction of security. It goes in the direction of, improved governance, and it goes in the direction of improved development. And that is actually nice because we will also be looking at those three topics in the later presentations. But before we go there, I hope that we can also put it in a little bit broader perspective of the, let's say, the international affairs. GB So, is he there? Is he there? He's not in the room. Okay, that's a pity. In that case, we'll go straight on. Not bad. I mean, we're already running over time. So let's move on to General Matthijssen. You heard already the security needs. What can military instruments contribute to addressing those security needs of local communities?
If you listen to the root causes and where the needs lie, then it's clear that security is really at stake. So for that reason, yes, you do need military, but I always say the military are not there for a military solution, because it's not about a single military solution. There's never a single military solution, but you need military as part of the solution. First of all, because basic security for the population is at stake, and the host nation security forces are not able to deal with it themselves, but they do have a role. So there's a role for international or forces coming from elsewhere to help the host nation armed forces, to improve the basic security for the population. But in doing so, there's also a role in indeed assisting and supporting and helping the host nation's armed forces to be able in the future to get better and to take care of security themselves somewhere in time. And I always say, with all the international efforts, we're basically also there to make ourselves obsolete. It can take 10 years or 15 years, but one day in time in the future, the nation has to do it themselves. And we need to keep that in mind. And for that reason, there's also a kind of obligation to work close together with the host nation institutions, security institutions. And a final point I do want to make is, we are talking more or less now in a conflict type of scenario, and I've seen it in Mali when I was there. The security is really at stake because of the reasons that were just mentioned. But also a little bit ahead of that, in a pre-conflict type of phase, we can provide security assistance, which is basically about training, advising host nation security institutions. And we have done so. We have done so, we as the Netherlands, in Burkina Faso, for instance, which is very useful and helpful for that nation as well. So there's a number of reasons I think that you need military, but not for a single military solution, but as part of the more comprehensive solution.
You were there, as part of MINUSMA. Why did MINUSMA and the Malian government then grow apart? Listening to you, that makes sense. You were there to support them.
Yeah.
Yet, they didn't want you anymore.
No, that is right. And let me say first, when I left earlier this year, that was still in the phase that the Malians said, we want MINUSMA to stay. That has changed because indeed the Malian government has asked MINUSMA and the UN to leave the country with the mission, which is fair enough because they other individuals, but still the Institute of the Malian government asked the UN to help in 2013, in the face of the uprising in the north. So the mission will end. I think I will mention two reasons. We can talk for the rest of the day. And again, I have to do it with what I read in the media. I think there are two reasons. One is, I'm not sure whether we collectively, not only the UN, but the international community, really understands how the government wants to be treated with. And the Malian government is a military junta, yes, and they want to be respected for three things. First, their sovereignty. Second, the choices that they make. And third, their vital interests, which I would say is fair enough, because I think every government wants just that. Malian government was pretty strict in wanting to be respected for that, and there's something underlying, and that has to do with the colonial past. They are really done, and that's not just the Malian government, but that applies to most of the African nations. They're really fed up with anything that even smells like behavior that looks like the colonial past, and we need to keep that in mind. So times are changing. We need to consider how to do business with those nations, and they're really open for cooperation. And I always say, don't go to them and say, hey, you have a problem, we think we can do this and that for you. No, go to them, ask them how they see the problem, and ask them what we could do to help them. So that's in the approach. And a second reason has to do with, a second thing I want to mention has to do, I think, with the geopolitical situation. I am pretty sure that there's Russian and or Wagner influence behind the Malians that has led to their proposal to the UN to leave Mali, which is very unfortunate, and time will tell what the effects will be. But those are the two things I would like to mention.
And listening to that then, what role is there still to play for the internet?
Give an answer maybe, because he's looking very eager to answer the questions.
Well, we have a whole panel, and he will also come back later. I mean, we have a chance to include him again in the discussion, but we're here as a whole panel. So, listening to what you are saying, what role is there for international external military forces in the Sahel, or is there no role anymore then?
No, I think that as long as security is at stake, there is a role. And again, primarily there's a role for the host nation security institutions. But if they can use the help, and if they are open to have the help, I think we should help them, because basic security is one of the most important needs to be taken care of for the population. And the way we do it is something that needs to be closely coordinated. It's providing the basic security, but also the security assistance that I mentioned, and helping the host nation armed forces. So yes, and again, in a comprehensive, broader approach, there's a role for the military too, I think. But it's important to keep in mind the way that we do business and the way that we cooperate, because again, that's the point I made, times have changed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to Iris Hartenveld, who's sitting next to Ibrahima. Iris, looking at the broader perspective, development, what can development instruments contribute to the addressing of security needs of local communities, as well as to the root causes, dealing with root causes of insecurity? Iris?
Good afternoon, Jair, everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, I think we have connection issues, yeah? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah? All right.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, all right, thanks a lot. I'm working here together with Ibrahima Maiga in Bamako, in Mali, in the region, we can say. And as coordinate, we are a double-mandated organization, so we work both on humanitarian work as well as on development, and we work a lot, or we work uniquely with our partner civil society organizations. So as coordinate, we have a long history and great expertise on working in countries like the Sahel countries, on which we really base our expertise. And we are convinced that if we want to contribute to change in the region, we have those changes are voiced by youth, women, men at community level, that we have to address multiple needs. And as supported as an international development organization, we do that here just to work on access to basic services, so working on health education, justice. We also work on access to markets, to create sustainable businesses, economic development, ensuring together to have the youth being employed, to provide a decent income.
You're breaking up. That's always a problem, right? With connecting with far away. Have we lost you, Iris?
I think so.
Yeah. What we'll do is let's move on to Tijmen, and then hopefully we'll be able to reconnect again with Iris. Tijmen, working from a governance and diplomatic perspective. What? Oh, you're back.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Continue. Go ahead.
All right, so the second aspect, I don't know where you lost me, is that we work also as supported on lobby and advocacy, on really bringing up the issues that are marked by our partners together with local communities to bring those issues to the different levels. So bringing really up the issues that play at the local community level, bring them to the attention at the regional level, national level, and as supported, we have that access also at the global platform to really lobby and have also institutional changes in place. So as Cordate, we are, and as international civil society organization, our interest is with the people. We really are looking at to protect the interests of youth, of women, and to facilitate also that exchange with the security providers. So also with the security forces, to encourage also that dialogue and the social cohesion that's really needed to provide that basic, to work also directly on changes on the economic side of life. So our role is really to work together with our partners to strengthen their capacities, also to support those advocacy change from local to the global level. And I think it's really important for us and for to listen in and to do that in-depth analysis with the real actors that we're talking about. So it's really important to identify we work on covering security aspects together with economic support and access to basic services. Thank you, Jair.
Can you repeat that last sentence because you broke up a little bit? Hope that works.
So I said, like, it is very important just to focus both on security.
That's brilliant. Try again. Are you muted or no?
All right. This is a different profession. Yeah. All right. It's really important to focus ourselves, to focus together as an organization on the security aspects together with our local partners, but at the same time also to address the economic aspects to create employment and to work on decent incomes, and at the same time also providing that access to basic services that everybody needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris. So we've been now covering security, we've been covering development. Then we go back to Tijmen. That's the third D in a way. What can diplomatic instruments contribute to addressing the security needs of local communities as well as addressing the root causes of the conflict? Insecurity.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you for the question and thank you for the speakers. Let's say, first of all, we need to work on but But I'm still happy that we got the connection actually with the region, because it is so important that we try to do that. And although it is difficult, so I'm very happy that the organizers did that and arranged that. I'm just going to take your question and give my own answer, because in a way I don't want to single out like our diplomatic tool, because the whole point of the way that we try to work also at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is try to work in an integrated manner and try to have, we have the tools for development, we have the tools for democracy, and we have the working on security, the third D of defense. So I will answer all three of them. And although on security, of course, I'll be very aware that there is a real knowledge on my left-hand side. So
you might be attacked from.
Yeah. I'm going to be careful, but okay. No, but really, so for diplomacy, of course, just we have our 4 embassies in 4 countries in the Sahel that are constantly engaging in a dialogue. You know, we decided, despite the difficult circumstances, to remain active, to keep the dialogue open, although it is difficult. Also on these issues around people-centered security and for development, we have a very broad portfolio. But just to focus a bit, what is important for this discussion is also that it's really localized. So we really try to work increasingly on community level, addressing the needs that are and the root causes that we see, the root causes of insecurity, of instability. So that means, on the one hand, for example, a program like with Coordate, with Just Future, really working on people-centered security and accountability, all of these important issues, on rule of law. But on the other hand, also taking security into account in our other programming. Because we got big programs, whether it's on water or whether it's on climate, agriculture, where it's very important to be sensitive of the security situation and on the issues of social contract. So that's another way we try to address that. And then there is stabilization programs, peace-building programs, and really that are also quite decentralized, so localized. And then there's the third, currently quite difficult D on defense as well and security, which is so important. It's actually, for example, working still with EU CAP. That's a mission in Mali with border police, but also working with the community again. So we really try to integrate that fully in all that we do. We also try to work in a way much more, which is a challenge, but we also really want to increasingly work at equal partnerships, being much better at listening, being more modest, you know, this is the 21st century, as the general also said. This is a time when also we need to know our position, we need to listen, and that is also really the core of our Africa strategy that we have. That's all about getting better at listening. It's much more, but I'll take that out and point at it. Then, of course, if you allow me, it's considering it's a debate and a dialogue. These are the things that the general said is indeed also very important, saying there's never a single military solution. And that's what I've tried to say as well, especially when we're talking about localized and people-centered security. This is not just an issue of giving the people with guns more capacity. So we are actually currently, of course, struggling with what can we still do security-wise in countries where there's now a military regime. I think it was very good that the general, that you put it down clearly, like we need to listen to them and then cooperate with them. I think the listening part is, I very much agree. I think the second part of how to cooperate is still is a dilemma. This is one. Yeah, well, I think it's a dilemma because these are military regimes. They're currently in a transition. When we hope so, that transition goes into a more legitimate, more democratic. Well, we just had a session on democracy, so we have to be very modest about that. But at least, you know, and transition towards more of a responsive and legitimate government. It's really the struggle if that challenges are best addressed by actually, let's say, strengthening these military responses of a military regime. So that is really a dilemma that we're working with now, you know, because it's about our credibility, it's about these transitions that are happening, it's about the fact that that there is also, of course, We're saying it will serve our interests, but in a way, does it? Because if as you said, if the security forces are partly responsible for a lot of the instability, the death, and the struggle of the people, then will it help to strengthen them, or are we able? That is what I hope the general will explain, to push them, so to say, in a certain more responsive security approach. Because currently, I would say that is it's not as clear cut. And it's extremely difficult to see how we have to cooperate in this field with military governments. That's not saying that there's not a lot that we can't do, because there's a lot that we still do. And that is what I wanted to stress, and why I wanted not just to answer on diplomacy, because there's so much that we're doing on security, on stabilization, with development, with diplomacy, with certain specific security interventions.
I wanted to ask you the question about the IOB report and how critical they were in the IOB report on inconvenient realities, and how critical they are about the Ministry of Foreign Affairs strengthening its partnerships with local civil society organizations and community leaders in Sahel, or how to do that, because that would, according to the report, strengthen the effectiveness of security interventions. And I already see the general actually jumping on his seat, because he wants to sort of answer your question. But I'd like to go first back to Ibrahima, if I may, and then go back to you, General. Then very short for both of you. I hear the dilemma. The dilemma is, basically, should we listen to people that we may not even want to be listening to, right? Military juntas. Ibrahima, can you very quickly respond and say, do you feel that the approach of the junta is the right approach, and should we listen to them? Would that work?
I think Iris is translating.
D'écouter les transitions militaires.
Oui. Est-ce que c'est...
A little bit of patience, hopefully. It's silent. Then I'll first give the floor to the general, and hopefully you get back.
Étaient sur le terrain et qui ont, à mon avis, aussi été victimes de beaucoup d'injustices, de beaucoup de mauvaise gestion des accords de paix et autres. Et donc, ils n'ont pas hésité à prendre le pouvoir. Et aujourd'hui, à défaut, en tout cas, face à l'échec des solutions et des approches proposées.
Better turn off your cameras, I think. Can you turn off your cameras? Turn off the cameras. We can't hear anything.
If they can just use one camera, one mic. Can you tell them, please, in the microphone?
Can you use one camera and unmute your mic? You have two cameras right now.
I'm French. Ask him in French. He speaks French.
Okay.
He speaks English as well.
Donc, je disais que
Volgens mij horen ze ons niet.
No. Let's park the question, and hopefully we get a renewed connection. General, first your view then on this dilemma.
Yeah, I realize that it's a dilemma, mainly for our politicians. But I think doing nothing is not an option.
Oh.
And politically, I think we have to, that's the point in the time that we are living with these type of governments, whether we like it or not, they're the government at that time. By the way, with a lot of, I've seen a lot of support in parts of Mali, not in entire Mali for that. In a transition, yes. But doing nothing or running away is not an option as well, because when we run away, we lose the dialogue, so we lose the opportunity to help or to push, as you call it, absolutely. That is one thing. And with running away, as European nations, and I've seen the European nations running away from the UN mission in Mali, we are offering more space for other actors, like Wagner and like Russia. And I can even put it more bluntly, and I was aware of the discussion in Brussels on whether or not to extend the mandate for the European Union training mission. Unfortunately, it was not extended. That may be one of the reasons that the Malians have been looking for another organization to help them to provide training on the job for their military with Wagner. You know, it's not the best choice to hire Wagner because of many reasons, and it's uncomfortable for us. But as a military, I can very well understand why they needed that type of support, and the international community has never provided that support. And I think that is an example, and I will add one further example. In my military force, I had a subordinate commander, a general from Burkina Faso, so he was working within my mission. I've had many conversations with him, not only about what we were doing in Mali, but also about the situation in his country. And he had a very nuanced opinion after the coup in Burkina. First, he was not happy with the coup, that is one thing. And the most that he was afraid of is that Burkina would lose military support coming from Europe and amongst other countries from the Netherlands, because that would only feed into the others and to the dynamics to step into maybe hiring Wagner as well, because if others don't provide it, maybe others will do, like Wagner, with less conditions. So it's a dilemma for our politicians, but I think we have to be willing and open to accept maybe a little bit more risk for the sake of a further lying purpose.
And that's coming from a military, a general, basically saying, if you don't listen to them, then actually the solution might be even more militarized. I hope that Ibrahima is back online. Can you answer the question still? Still frozen? Yeah. Okay. In that case, I'd like to actually move to the audience. They may ask you the question to answer what you wanted to say, but. Raise your hand if you want to say something. In the back first. Yeah, but this is not going to work. No.
Merci. J'ai une question pour Monsieur Maïga. Qu'est-ce qu'il croit, quelles sont les relations entre le junta militaire, le régime militaire et le Boko Haram? Et est-ce qu'il croit qu'il est nécessaire que l'Union africaine fasse une intervention humanitaire à Mali et les autres pays au Sahel, surtout Darfour, Soudan aussi?
But I fear that we've lost the whole connection right now, right? Okay, Ibrahima, did you hear the question?
On aime très beaucoup vous écouter, Monsieur Maïga. Est-ce que vous pouvez répondre sans image, avec votre microphone, s'il vous plaît?
No. Okay. Hopefully they've heard it. Otherwise, first a question here. Sorry, technical problems. I mean, it's far away, right?
So in the former discussion, the point was that we should have a human right-centered approach to the problems. So discussing about this aspect. Is it not possible to listen also to all the, for example, in Mali, to the Malian people, which we have development cooperation. The development cooperation, we have a lot of contacts with Malian people. We can know their opinions about what should be happen. And should that be not more giving directions to what we are doing and what military the international military are doing as well? And should development cooperation not be much more or be the leading factor in this 3-day approach, what we have in the Netherlands? And that the defense part is supporting the development part.
Exactly. I hope that Ibrahima is back. Yeah. Can you?
Yes, we are back.
Yes.
But what's the question? Yeah.
Well, first the first question. Did you hear the question about the dilemma? Actually, you know, we want to listen to. No, should we actually listen to a junta? What is your view on that from the ground?
Écoutez, bon, il faut écouter les gouvernements de transition parce que c'est eux qui ont quand même les armes et c'est eux qui ont les affaires, c'est eux qui gèrent le pays. Si on veut une solution durable, il faut discuter avec eux et trouver des terrains d'entente. Aller vers l'essentiel qui est aujourd'hui de faire face aux vies humaines. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, avec tout ce qui se passe sur le terrain, c'est des vies humaines que nous perdons tous les jours. Les populations ne peuvent plus se déplacer librement. Voilà. Et donc, dans ça, avec le pouvoir qui est en place, quoi que ceci puisse adopter comme position, à mon avis, il faut discuter avec eux et il faut essayer de les convaincre pour aller vers une sortie de crise. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, ils ont fait ce acte, c'est un coup d'État et tout le monde sait qu'un coup d'État dans les pays comme le nôtre est un crime imprescriptible. Ils n'ont pas de garantie. Voilà. Et si on discute avec eux, on parvient à trouver des compromis, ça peut les rassurer. Voilà. Et on peut aller vers la normalité. Mais si on continue à les ignorer, ils vont trouver les moyens, ils vont tout faire pour se maintenir au pouvoir et finalement, c'est la population qui va continuer à souffrir. À notre avis, il faut discuter avec les pouvoirs en place. Ils ont certes dégagé des orientations qui sont pour eux des orientations stratégiques. Qu'on puisse voir dans quelle mesure on peut aujourd'hui intégrer, en tout cas, les besoins fondamentaux des communautés en termes de sécurité. Parce que c'est de l'insécurité dont il s'agit. C'est du terrorisme dont il s'agit. Voilà. Et ces hommes, ni foi ni loi, qui n'hésitent à attaquer des civils dans un bateau, il faut, à mon avis, des efforts conjugués pour pouvoir combattre ces ennemis que nous avons en commun. Et donc, pour cela, nécessairement, il faut discuter avec le pouvoir en face et les aider à aller vers des solutions qui vont aider les communautés à la base.
Karis, you wanted to... Yeah?
So the response was that we need to listen to the government now in transition because they have the power for now. We need to take into account the humanity in our approach and the fact that we're talking about human lives. Also, we need to discuss with them and find a compromise because like that we give them assurance, and if we continue to ignore them, then the situation will worsen and insecurity will grow. So basically discussing and give them the floor also to how to, to discuss.
Yeah. And then let me ask the question about the centrality of development cooperation, basically to Iris. Well, we'll get back to your question as well. Iris.
Yes, I'm here. Could you please repeat the question, Jair?
The centrality of development cooperation in dealing with the situation. How do you look at that? Or the security intervention should support. I'm quickly translating, sort of. Should support the development cooperation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it is. If we discuss the root causes of conflicts, and I think there's a lot, in development of communities that we're working with that are crucial just to find also that alternative to the battlefield as it's there. The last sentence that Maida was saying is that there are joint enemies that we are trying to fight. So there's a need. It's clear that there is terrorism, there's jihadism, there is a banditism that is a common enemy for the country and for its communities everywhere. So that's something. That's a joint a fight that we have to see together, and working on security goes hand in hand also with the development aspects. And the alternate people are taken out of their normal lives. There's no security to grow crops, to go to markets, to really have that trade, to go to schools, to have access to the necessary needs for women, to have safe deliveries, etc. So access to basic services, having access to employment, that really keeps people together. And that is key also in ensuring security for communities as well. So it goes hand in hand for us. And yeah, so that is crucial as well.
Thank you. Then the lady in the back had a question for Ibrahima.
Bonjour, Monsieur Maïga. Bonjour. Quelles sont les relations entre le nouveau régime militaire et Boko Haram? Est-ce que ce sont des ennemis? Et est-ce que vous croyez que c'est nécessaire que l'Union africaine fait une intervention humanitaire au Mali et aux autres pays en Sahel, surtout Darfour au Soudan? Merci.
Ok, merci pour cette question. Bon, par rapport au lien entre le gouvernement de transition en place et Boko Haram, moi je crois qu'il n'y a pas de lien entre eux. La preuve, tous les jours, ce qui se passe sur le terrain, on voit que c'est des affrontements entre les mouvements, en tout cas les forces régulières de l'État et les mouvements terroristes. Alors, ils disent d'ailleurs qu'ils sont en train de combattre le terrorisme. Et donc, sachant bien que Boko Haram a des liens avec les mouvements terroristes, comme je l'ai dit, la nature a horreur du vide. Et ce grand espace qui n'est pas couvert sur le plan sécuritaire, qui n'est pas contrôlé, et a favorisé l'installation de plusieurs groupements terroristes qui collaborent avec Boko Haram et autres. Et donc, du coup, je trouve que nos autorités actuelles sont beaucoup plus en lutte contre ces mouvements terroristes qui ne font que terroriser les communautés, les populations à la base. Maintenant, ce qui concerne l'Union africaine, il faut nécessairement des actions humanitaires pour aujourd'hui répondre aux besoins des communautés. Il y a tellement de déplacés. Il y a certains villages qui ont totalement été vidés à cause de l'insécurité parce que ces mouvements terroristes viennent, ils menacent, ils font des menaces, ils donnent des délais aux communautés de quitter. À défaut, ils viennent et ils tuent tout le monde. Et donc, par paire, beaucoup se sont déplacés et il y a des camps de déplacés qui sont aujourd'hui de part et d'autre dans les capitales régionales comme Gao et autres, et où il faut nécessairement des actions humanitaires, de l'assistance. Ils ont des problèmes de santé, des problèmes d'éducation, des problèmes hygiéniques, d'accès à l'eau potable et beaucoup d'autres. Donc, nécessairement, en dehors de tout ce que l'Union africaine et les partenaires internationaux peuvent faire, il faut renforcer nécessairement l'action humanitaire. En dehors de cela aussi, il faut dialoguer. Il faut ouvrir, en tout cas, des dialogues, des négociations avec ces autorités pour voir sur quoi on peut s'entendre, pour aller vers des solutions qui peuvent aujourd'hui permettre aux communautés d'être soulagées, mais aussi d'aller vers des solutions pérennes et durables en termes de paix et de stabilité. Et renforcer la médiation et la résolution des conflits. Cela passe nécessairement aussi par l'intervention de ces autorités. Et même en dehors de l'Union africaine, il faut que la communauté internationale s'implique. Parce qu'il y a une tension entre les organisations régionales, la CEDEAO et l'Union africaine avec ces autorités en place, qui ont été victimes de sanctions jugées inhumaines et illégales par ces autorités en place. Donc, du coup, il y a un fort besoin de négociation et de voir comment on peut rétablir la confiance et même le dialogue entre ces organisations régionales et les autorités en place. C'est ce qui va nous permettre d'aller progressivement vers des solutions durables.
Merci. Karis, can you take the challenge of quickly summarizing this?
Just a moment. So, in the first point, the linkage between Boko Haram and the transition government, he doesn't find one that a link exists, because Boko Haram is interrelated with terrorist groups, and they're trying to favorize instability in the region. But then the transition government is against the influence of terrorist groups. So in that sense, there is no link in between the two. And on the second point, the African Union, and there is a need to take humanitarian action into account and the lives of civilians. To provide basic needs and reinforced conflict resolution and mediation is needed, both for the African Union, but also to other players that want to step in the region.
Yes. We're running out of time, and at the same time, I have two people here who are also still, wanting to answer a question. Timon, first you, and then the general, and then we close. Timon. You wanted to respond to the general.
Oh, early, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes,
Of course.
Thanks. Of course, we mean that.
Yeah, sorry.
And of course, I want to respond. No, thanks a lot. I think it is important to emphasize that I very much agree, as the general also said, and as everyone's been saying, online and offline, doing nothing is not an option. I don't think. In our case, as for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that is most definitely not what we're doing. We're doing a lot. We're actually staying. That is a few months ago to actually say that was still a statement. Now it's taken for granted. I think it is strange that it once was an issue, but we're staying and we're also continuing a dialogue. That's what I said. Also with those governments. Well, I do want to say that a dialogue and having honest and open relationship on an equal level doesn't automatically mean that you have to do one-on-one what is being asked of you. That's not equality. So actually having a good dialogue, and I have to say that the dilemma that I painted and that the generals responded to is not just a dilemma for politicians. It is also a dilemma for civil servants and diplomats, and I think a dilemma for military, and a dilemma for a lot of analysts who are also, as your paper, also your points also pointed out, is not that clear cut to actually say, let's just support a military government with military tools. It is, there is of course, that's a dilemma, as I said. It's about, these are governments in transition. You don't necessarily want to unnecessarily legitimize them, despite their very clear role that they have and the importance of the role that they're taking. That is also another part of the dilemma. And also, it's about the long term. The Netherlands, we're there for the long term, not for a short-term win. You try to remain there long term for the people. And because that's actually always the core. What in the end benefits the people of the Sahel. Not what benefits us just immediately, not just what benefits a central government. No, what benefits the people of the Sahel. And that is, and that a country is always much more than just its central government. We're focusing tremendously on the junta and what they're doing and these difficult questions that we have. It poses dilemmas for us, so we should address that and we should dialogue. But we should never assume that the country is just central government. There's local governments, there's civil society, there's youth groups, there's women. We try to work with all of them because that is in the end why we're there. And there is no single military solution, exactly as the general also said. So we will continue, despite the dilemmas and the difficulties that we see, we will continue working on stabilization, on people-centered security, because there's a lot that we are doing.
Thank you, General.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few things related to the question the gentleman on my left asked on whether or not to have a more human rights-centered approach. I would say, if I look at Mali and the UN mission and the military part of the UN mission, that already is a population-centric military contribution. That is continuously at the heart of the thinking, and we were there to facilitate, you know, the work on development and on the political side, etc., etc. And the presence that we had with military in the villages in the region is also having a deterrent effect on the armed groups, which doesn't mean that they're not there, but most of the time, wherever we were, they didn't do the bad things. They did the bad things where we were not. We were not there to go after those bad guys. That's the responsibility for the Malian armed forces themselves. And then we talk about the counterterrorism type of operation. That was not UN's mandate. So I would say there's already a population-centric type of approach in it for the military.
But that is also a very difficult question, I think, because in theory, definitely. But you know, you're already touching on issues like, you know, which communities, who is the population, whose human rights are we talking about, and so on.
No, that's right. But that's why also in the military, you know, down to the lowest level, we try to be as closely as possible in touch with the village chiefs, the regional chiefs, not only on the military side, but also on the civilian side.
Yeah. And then maybe it's not necessarily, you know, if you have a dilemma at the national level, it may not be there at the local level. That's basically what you're saying.
Well, dilemmas are everywhere, isn't it? This is
No,
the
that
beauty
dilemma.
of our work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we already ran over time, so unfortunately, I fear we have to end this discussion. I would like to thank our panelists. First of all, Ibrahima Maiga.
Merci beaucoup. Merci à tout le monde. Et c'est un plaisir. C'est aussi important pour l'organisation de la société civile locale, souvent de pouvoir participer à ces genres de rencontres, voilà, et de faire entendre la voix des communautés locales. Dehors de tout ce qui est les médias internationaux rencontrent. Merci à vous.
Merci beaucoup. It's great that, you know, at least we were able to start from the ground and sort of respond on that. Difficulties with technical, you know, with the connection. Ibrahima, we'll meet again, I think, the day after tomorrow, actually. Iris, thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Apology for the connection and all the hassles we had. It's also the reality that we're living at the moment. Power cuts are all over the place, and we are celebrating the military victories, but at the same time, we are also, as well, even here in Bamako, there's all the difficulties that we are facing, and that also block people just to do their work properly. And for us, it's just it's a Saturday afternoon, but for a lot of others, they can't just go into their to do their jobs as hairdressers or as, you know, as sewers. There's a lot of economic problems due to power cuts. So thanks a lot for having us, and apology again for this hassle. I hope our main message has come across. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.
I think so too, and you know, impressive that Cordate is taking on the responsibility for power cuts and connection issues. Tijmen, thank you very much. And last but not least, General Case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And of course, you as well for listening and staying with us despite of all the technical issues. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank